We are about to embark on an immersive journey through the corridors of our minds. Stand by as we prepare for departure.
Welcome aboard, everyone, to the Productivity with Peace of Mind podcast adventure. Our journey will begin in just a moment. Inhale deeply and exhale. Our voyage takes us on a captivating tour, diving deep into the intricate layers of our thoughts and imagination. Brace yourselves for the complexities of our evolution. For a safe and enjoyable journey, stay seated, secure your helmet and protective goggles, and keep hands, feet, and legs inside while the ride is moving. Now relax and enjoy.
What if I told you that curiosity is one of the best kept secrets in being a better leader and a better learner in our life and in business? Today, we're talking with a new leader in the music therapy space who's sharing with us what it's been like for her stepping into her new leadership role, figuring out what type of leader she wants to be, and learning how to connect with her teams and show up how she wants to show up. So, without further ado, let's go to the conversation. Megan is a board certified music therapist who works in a community mental health center in Tallahassee, Florida. Music therapy is an evidence informed allied health practice that uses music to work on non musical goals. She has worked in residential and inpatient behavioral health hospitals, as well as private practice and school settings. She recently accepted a leadership role in her current company as a training manager and family liaison, in addition to providing music therapy for clients and supervising music therapy interns. In her free time, she enjoys spoiling her dog, powerlifting, gardening, spending time with her friends, and assisting local community baseball events. So, Megan, it is so great to have you here today. I'd love to give you an opportunity to say hello and introduce yourself.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, Lindsay. It's an honor. Um, so I'm a music therapist and I currently work at an eating disorder recovery center in Tallahassee, Florida. I started as a music teacher. That's what my undergraduate degree is in, and then I went and got my equivalency and master's degree in music therapy, and I've been doing that for about 8 years now. Um, and whenever I was doing my student teaching, I really enjoyed it. And also, I was seeing the benefit of music beyond the classroom.
That's amazing, Megan. Thank you so much for sharing. And could you tell us a little bit more about your journey into the mental health field and your work in music therapy, supporting clients who might be also managing those eating disorders and maybe anxiety disorders?
Yeah, of course. So I started out as a music teacher. That was what my undergrad was in, and I did assistant my assistantship basically with student teaching, and I was seeing how music and the benefits of music was extending beyond the classroom, and that led me to learning about music therapy and looking at some of the articles that have been published about music therapy and really seeing the evidence behind just how music can be used in a mental health setting and to help address things like anxiety and and things like that. And that led me to pursuing an equivalency and master's degree in music therapy. And originally, when I started, I was really drawn to continuing working in education and seeing how music therapy could um, be used in education and music therapists working in education settings. But one of my first clinical experiences was in a behavioral health hospital.
Mm.
And I absolutely fell in love working in that environment and with that population. And I went back for an internship, and then I went back to work in behavioral health settings and residential settings um, and behavioral hospitals for most of my career.
That's great. I always love like a very dynamic and ever changing and ever evolving path like that because that's something similar to what I've been through. So, as you've taken on your leadership role, how has your perspective on challenges with mental health evolved? Like, what advice might you give someone in managing their own emotional wellness during times of growth like that? So, if someone else is maybe making a transition into leadership like you did, or another transition in their life, what has worked for you or what has changed for you that you would want them to know?
Yeah, it was a great question. So, one of the perspectives on challenges with mental health that has really changed for me is additional awareness of systems that can provide support or barriers, and seeing how connections and relationship building really helps to provide resources and that I can provide as a leader to my team members, but also to my clients, and just having knowledge about the systems that can potentially be beneficial, how that can share. And I know that that might be that different benefits can and opportunities can vary for a lot of people, and just trying to continuously learn about how best to um, provide those resources, and also to how to collaborate with other people to make sure that I'm listening to them and in how I can connect. Um, as far as advice for someone managing their own emotional wellness during as in a leadership role is definitely, at least when you're working in mental health, is following our own advice and
Yeah.
seeking support ourselves,
Yeah.
setting healthy boundaries, building community, and being really intentional about building community within our profession, but then also outside of our profession, so that we have that balance. Um, and then also giving ourselves grace and making sure that in leadership, and also just in mental health, working in mental health, or just and taking care of our own mental health, of making sure that we're not being super hard on ourselves, because anytime that you're growing and you're gaining new skills, or you're stepping into a leadership role, or even just stepping into a new position, there's a lot of um growing pains, as it were.
Yeah. Yeah.
um and so making sure that we're kind to ourselves, and knowing that we're learning whenever we're stepping into those roles, or we're learning when we're learning how to adapt to our teams, we're learning how to support our teams, we're learning how to work differently with people around us than maybe we had before.
Yeah, and those challenges are so normal, right? Like there's no new adventure, promotion, project, anything that we're going to take on in life that doesn't come with its
Mhm.
own unique set of challenges and roadblocks and things that are going to require us to think outside the box a little bit. So, what are some of the
Mhm.
ways that you've best found to face those challenges and reframe it for yourself so you're in that kind of growth mindset and you're just ready to learn and ready to go versus being like, oh, I'm stuck and getting kind of that stuck mindset?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely being curious about and being open to learning, and realizing that we're always in that state of learning, even when we feel like maybe um we've done something, or we're familiar with something that maybe we're seeing it from a different perspective, or maybe we're needing to approach it from a different perspective, even if we're familiar with it. And also being curious about different scenarios, like what does this look like if, and also other people's perspective, and learning from those around us. Um, and hearing like how they view things, and um yeah, just always being curious and being in that open um state of just what can I learn?
Yeah. Yeah. I love the curiosity piece because if we are asking questions and we're in that space of, what could this mean? What could I learn from this? What can I get from this thing over here? We're always going to go so much further than we would if we just kind of have that tunnel vision that, the brain wants to do, where it's like, okay, this is what I know, this is where I'm going to stay, right? Versus like, this is new and interesting. What can happen if I just open up to it? Is there any specific challenge that you might have faced in your own career in mental health, and how did you overcome that?
Yeah, there are, there's definitely with mental health, I always say that am always I'm always learning. I never have a day where I'm bored. I
Yeah.
never have a day where I'm not learning. Even when I am doing things that maybe are familiar. Um, I think um, specific examples, definitely probably problem solving with team members on how can we provide wraparound services, which wraparound services in mental health is kind of those things of with those connecting people
Mm.
to resources outside of the individual or family or group therapy sessions or music
Oh,
therapy
nice.
sessions, learning how to regroup when things don't work, I think,
Wow.
and and have backup plans for backup plans. One of the things early in my career, or this is before I had stepped into leadership roles, is learning that I don't have to have all the answers. So one of the things I remember working with a client and hearing about their experiences and feeling like, oh snap, I don't know where to connect. I don't know who to connect them with. I don't know how to connect them to some of those, those services
Mhm.
that they might need beyond that hour that I was spending with them. And um, one of the things I learned from having really great mentors and really great supervisors is that being in that state of curiosity and asking, hey, what resources do you already have? Or what resources are around you? Or what resources do you need? One, asking those questions, and then also um, seeking that support from other people and other supervisors, mentors, or even other people that are on that clinical team, that is so powerful, and that is really beneficial in a way to provide um provide services beyond what I would be able to individually, um and also while of course respecting the privacy of the client and the patient, but making sure that I don't have to have all the answers, and that sometimes, right, you're bringing your expertise and also learning to incorporate the expertise of those around you. And sometimes, and a lot of times too, within mental health, that expertise is your client or your patient, because they know themselves better than anybody else, as cliche as that sounds.
Yeah.
um and also, you know sometimes the people in leadership now is like, a lot of times your team members, they're bringing their expertise on things that they have and learning, hey, I don't have to have all the answers as a leader. I can lean on my team to have the expertise
Yeah.
that they have, and trust them with that and encourage that and foster that. Um, yeah. Um, and that also, I think that also helps too with um, tackling barriers as a team is always, that makes tackling barriers a lot easier too when everybody's bringing their own areas of expertise and you're able to collaborate in that way. Um, and then also being patient, being patient with change and knowing that it's change is oftentimes a process and knowing that sometimes you're going to have micro changes and as opposed to what we always want, which are like, okay, change is going to happen immediately. But making sure that, hey, just because you can't see the change right now doesn't mean that it's not happening.
Right. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, those are so good and great things for us to remember anytime we are facing a challenge because it's the only way we're going to really get to the other side, right?
yeah.
Do you have any strategies that you use for goal setting, either, personally for you or with your clients or interns? And then how can we apply those strategies to our own lives?
One thing that's very popular in the area that I work is called SMART goals.
Mhm.
SMART goals stands for, it's an acronym and it stands for specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-based. And I think the A and the R actually, their title changes a little bit depending on who you ask. But basically, it's making sure that things are scalable to our own capabilities and that we're able to measure success in terms of progress as opposed to that kind of that giant outcome that maybe that long-term end goal, making sure that it's something that we can be successful at and it's that milestone that we know that we can achieve. And so that you don't get discouraged. So that's one thing that I try and teach not only my interns but also clients too of, hey, let's set those realistic goals and then the time base is a way to check in with ourselves and see, hey, how do we need to scale this if it's not working, or how do we need to change things so that it can work or that we can be successful in achieving goals. um, and then also doing, check-ins with ourselves. I am really big on self-care, and that's something that I tell tell my interns too, um, is making sure that we're taking care of ourselves and that we're pacing ourselves and that we're not taking on too much too fast because we can get in our own way. Um, and especially when you're passionate about something and you love what you do, it's really easy to try and, um, hold back the ocean with a broom, as it were.
Wow. Yeah.
And so when you're so passionate, you want to jump in feet first and and try and make sure everything happens all at once and just, okay, I can do things, and also I need to make sure that I'm pacing and that I'm making sure that I'm doing things in a way where I get to do this work that I love and that I enjoy for the long term. Um, and then also not when those moments of missing our goals or kind of falling just a little bit short of our goals, not
Mhm.
treating that in an all or nothing
Yeah.
approach where it's like, oh, I'm a failure, I didn't make it. Knowing that that's just a, oh, hey, that means that something needs to change, and like, how
Yeah.
can we change it to where we can be successful and viewing it as an opportunity for growth and not as a, as a personal failing. um and I think the last one is definitely the planning for rainy days, because you're gonna have those moments where something comes up that, something doesn't work out the way that you want. And sometimes anticipating those can help achieve goals sooner, because you were able to get ahead of and have that proactive approach to situations that were potentially unanticipated. And obviously that doesn't always happen because you can't, we don't know everything that's gonna gonna happen, but having a little bit of that plan if in our back
Yeah.
pockets in case, can be really helpful and can also help not get discouraged when when those rainy days do come along.
Right, because they are coming and they happen and they're
Mhm.
normal and they're part of life and the process. And I think you have such a good point because I often say that, you know, people might say, "Oh, I don't know what's going to come up. I don't know what's going to, derail my day, week, month, year, whatever." But if we
Absolutely.
really think about it, we can probably make some good guesses and still be prepared that something will come up and there will be
Mhm.
some kind of roadblock. And having that plan ahead of time for what we can anticipate, I think is so huge.
And sometimes that plan is just reminding ourselves that we can do it and
Yes.
that we have skills that even if we're facing a new challenge, there's there are skills that we can lean back on, and or that there's those communities that we built, or those mentors, or those people in our lives that we've connected with, that we can reach out to. And I know that's not, that not everyone's always in that situation, but knowing that there are a lot of times there are resources that sometimes we're not aware of, and sometimes those plans is just reminding ourselves of what those resources are, or even just collecting them and like writing them on a list to remind ourselves whenever we're in that moment of like, oh yeah, I have these resources. Okay, I do have, I did plan for this.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I love the list idea because like I do this a lot. I have, different height files for things like to remind myself of different things, whether it's, for a relationship or for work or for a new project of like, okay, here's the good news. Like these are
Yeah.
the things I want to remember. Or, just having those reminders of, I have a long note on my phone of key phrases and I'll filter through them. Now there's like, gosh, probably like 100 on there now over the years I've collected them, but I'll pick out, 5 or 10 each month or quarter. Then I'm like, okay, this is what I want to remember and focus on right now. And so I think I love that list
Yeah.
idea that you have. And I just think it makes all the difference.
Lists are amazing.
We love lists. You talked about curiosity, and this is probably one of the favorite things of mine that you have talked about with me. And you've said this has been kind of a central theme in your approach to all of this. How can we cultivate our own curiosity in our lives in order to really build that resilience and develop that growth mindset within ourselves?
Definitely extending curiosities. I know we talked about earlier curiosity, kind of situational curiosity, and kind of looking outward with curiosity. But looking inward about curiosity too, or using using curiosity inward too, I think is really also equally as beneficial, because our emotions, right? Our emotions are informants. So, and again, this is not an original thing. This is something that's common within my field, but using emotions as informants, because it's kind of like, how do we know when we need to drink water? Because we get thirsty, so we
Yep.
have that information.
Yep.
How do we know that we need to eat something, as we're getting hungry? Like, we have that information. A lot of times our emotions can serve in a similar way. It can share like, hey, I need connection. I'm feeling disconnected. I'm feeling lonely, or um I'm feeling lost, or I'm feeling confused. It's like, okay, if I'm feeling confused, maybe I need more information.
Mhm.
Um and really being curious about, okay, what is the message, or what is that information that my emotions are providing, or what is that information that my thoughts are providing, and not judging ourselves when we have those pop up. A common one that I like to talk about with my interns is imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Um, because that can be so common whenever you're stepping into a new role, a new position, for them, when they're changing hats from student role into professional role, of that feeling of, oh my gosh, like, do I belong here? Like, am I supposed to do this? Like, am I good enough for this?
Mhm.
So one of the the encouragements that I offer is when they're feeling that imposter syndrome coming up, of being curious about what is the topic that you're feeling imposter syndrome on. Are you in a leadership role? Like, are you in charge of a department and, or are you in charge of groups? Are you in charge of activities? And so what is it how can you approach that in a way of um, like knowing what you want to learn,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and treating imposter syndrome as your brain telling you it wants to learn something,
Mhm.
and what is it pointing you to as far as topics to learn, and leaning into that and seeing how you do after a month of learning that topic, or even just exploring it, and kind of and being curious themselves about that topic. How does imposter syndrome feel after you've treated it as a messenger, and leaned into that? And a lot of times, or I've had a few interns call afterwards and say, "Oh, I did it and it worked." So,
Oh,
and
that's
I
awesome.
get to celebrate that with them, and I love it when they're able to, get through that moment of that imposter syndrome and say, "I got it," and celebrate that.
Yeah. Well, reframing that as from imposter to I want to learn more about this, I think could be so
Yeah,
powerful.
absolutely.
And how would you describe kind of your leadership philosophy, particularly when you are guiding and mentoring some people on your teams and the interns and everybody you're working with?
I definitely try and take um like that encourager role on that, and trying to empower my interns or my team, and like I said, letting them bring their expertise, and then and trying to encourage that, and then as a supervisor or as a leader, trying to help identify the goals, and especially if we're struggling with something, if something's challenging, if there's um there's a situation where it's like, I don't know what to do in this situation, or I'm not sure how to um I'm not sure how to achieve this task, or I'm not sure how to support this client, of, hey, let's identify the goals, let's identify that main that main thing that we're working towards, um, as a treatment team, or that main thing that we're working, and clients are part of the treatment teams. And how can we kind of set that main goal on and work towards that together, um, and how can we bring all of our expertise to work towards that goal, um, and then also, if someone's learning something, trying to meet them where they're at. If my interns are trying to learn something, meet them where they're at, and really be a teacher when those moments happen, um and use teaching and training as that first response to challenges. So if if there's something that's like, oh, I'm not sure what to do, coming back later and being like, okay, we're going to learn this new skill, and
Yeah.
then moving from there, and if there's an area that they're feeling like they don't know a lot in, then doing what I can to bring them either resources, or teach, if I have that ability to teach them myself, or sometimes even bringing in other people with expertise. Singing is something that is common in music therapy, so I have some skills with singing, and also there's people that have more skills in singing than I do. So sometimes I'll have that amazing opportunity to collaborate with some of my peers and say, hey, will you come work with my interns, and support them with learning more about keeping their voices healthy, and bringing in their expertise, and working and teaching and training and providing that additional knowledge and expertise to help.
I love that. I love how like such creative approaches to that.
Thank
You
you.
also shared that setting a vision and providing purpose, like really like understanding the why behind what you're doing and sharing that with your teams has been crucial as you've
Mhm.
developed your leadership style. what is the best way to communicate that why behind our work to our teams and provide purpose for them? Because when you have a vision or a goal and you know where you're going, how do you then get them behind it so they're just as excited as you are about where they're going?
Definitely that focusing on big picture and also incorporating things that they're passionate about, and like how do the things that they're passionate about and they're excited about fit into the big picture.
Mhm.
And then also in those moments of struggle of redirecting from the kind of nitty-gritty details that can kind of get really overwhelming or really heavy whenever things get challenging, and making sure that um, those aren't becoming kind of mini barriers to those goals and to that passion, and to achieving, the bigger picture.
Yes, absolutely. And then let's look at conflict resolution for a minute. Do you have any good strategies for how you approach that and how you incorporate it with your teams and how you maybe, do some of those reframes into making it an opportunity for some growth, improvement, and learning?
Yeah, absolutely. I will say that this is an area I am still continuously learning and growing in myself. Um, I definitely think curiosity has a major role in conflict.
Mm.
Um, and also being non-judgmental with conflict, of seeing that the conflict is something that we're working on as a team. So I've definitely, how can we solve this? And that's where that curiosity piece comes in. How can we solve this? Asking that how question.
Mhm.
How can we work together to solve the conflict? Um and and sometimes that also, whenever, if there's frustration, is understanding the person that maybe bringing a different perspective, and understanding like, hey, what brought them, what is how did they get to this conclusion, or what solutions are they seeking, what resources do are they bringing, and what perspective do they have, and then when I'm with working with people is and um working within music therapy, teaching interns how to manage conflict too, of like how to teach conflict resolution. And um one of the things that we focus in on is making sure that we're incorporating people's emotions and how they're feeling about situations, and making sure that we're supporting people, because sometimes with conflict, there are very real situations that are presenting that are creating the conflict. There's challenges that are behind that conflict, and making sure that people are taking care of themselves emotionally, or that those emotional needs are met. Those other things that might be contributing to conflict, if it's conflict between people, and making sure that those are also addressed. So there's kind of, I know I gave kind of two perspectives on that, with the conflicts with managing conflicts, within kind of a more work and business, and um kind of a team setting, but and then also kind of that like that's kind of specific um to what I'm teaching my interns, with how to support people within music therapy, and support their clients and everything. um One thing I think that ties in together is trying to find, again, that bigger picture, like what is the goal, what is that main thing that people need, that main thing that we're working on, that how do we work collaboratively to solve that main conflict together, and how can we bring our strengths, and how can we find a situation where we can all do that.
I love the different perspectives always. I think it's great to look at things from many different angles. I think it helps kind of like apply it to, different situations that we might be facing or dealing with. And then how do you encourage a culture of growth and learning within your team? So, like, really instilling in them that ability to become lifelong learners themselves. And do you have any advice for how we can then foster similar environments with our teams?
Um, Again, I'm continuously learning about this, and I've
Mhm.
been very fortunate to have some amazing leaders and mentors in my life. And I know that some of the things that I'm learning will work for me and my interns and may not be, globally um, applicable. But I would definitely say, um, again, kind of reiterating that being curious about our emotions and our thoughts and like what are those messages, and not judging ourselves when those are showing up, and instead embracing them of, hey, what direction is this pointing me? What can I learn? And leaning into that, hey, what is that information that I want to learn about? Or what is my coworker's perspective on this? Like, how can I learn more about that? Um, and then also I think again, reframing that imposter syndrome in the same way of leaning into, hey, what is this that I can learn? What is that emotion telling me I want more information about? And how can I use that as a motivator as opposed
Mhm.
to um, creating a situation where I feel like I'm gonna freeze?
Mhm.
Um, and then being open to that learning, and staying in that curiosity and learning from all different all different ways, like listening to podcasts about
Mhm.
about leadership, or
Mhm.
reading or listening to books, or seeking out mentorship or seeking out community, and seeking out other people's perspectives.
It's a balance, right? Like you want to leverage the knowledge of others, whether they're ahead, behind, beside, wherever they are, like leveraging the knowledge of others, but then also really understanding what's happening within us too at the same time.
Mm,
So it's very like double-sided in the sense of learning and listening of what are other people saying and like what is my gut saying too.
yeah, absolutely. I think that definitely seems like where a lot of that growth happens, is where you can take all those perspectives, and all that knowledge that you learn, and then use it as a way to make a decision that works really well for you, and that's in alignment with your leadership style, or your values, or even the direction that you want to bring your team, or if you're supervising interns, like the direction that you want to bring your interns.
Right. Yeah. Because it's like if you just kind of block everybody else and everything else out and you just only listen to what you want, you can end up being kind of a bull in a china shop in a sense of just like, like not really noticing what's around you. But if you only listen to other people, then you're completely negating your own inner wisdom and you might be just doing yourself a disservice and missing out on some of your own values and crossing some boundaries with yourself. So
Yeah,
it's a good balance to strive for.
absolutely.
So, as we wrap up, what would you say is the most important thing that we can start putting into practice right away when it comes to cultivating this curiosity within ourselves and overcoming any challenges and being that leader of positive cultures?
I would definitely say first thing is granting ourselves grace.
Mhm.
When we're able to grant ourselves grace, and we're putting that into practice for ourselves. A, a lot of times, at least in my experience, it's easier to do that for others, and it's way more natural to do that for
Mhm.
others. I would say that second thing would be the asking how and what questions,
Mhm.
um, to gather more information to help problem solve. Um, because that how and what question of, hey, how can I make this process better, or how can I learn more about this, or um what was the process to get here, or what's behind, what's that main problem that we're trying to solve, that main conflict or that main barrier we're trying to address. um I think those are two that at least for me, I found really, really helpful, and two that I often find myself repeating for interns, and that I encourage them to use as well. Of being kind to themselves and asking those how and what questions and being curious about those emotions and thoughts and that information that they're seeking.
Yeah, I mean, the asking questions piece is crucial. And so to be able to really, reflect on like, what am I doing? How did I get here? What am I solving for? What am I in control of? It
Mhm.
really helps us move forward. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. And as you said, I know you're, just stepping into leadership and you're learning as you go, but we're all still learning from day one to our very last day of life. So thank you for sharing with
Absolutely.
us. Thank you for sharing your experience and for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for braving the inside of your mind with me. The better we understand ourselves, the more deeply we understand the world. And as our awareness grows, life just gets better and better. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to leave a review and share this with anyone else you think could benefit from listening. A quick reminder that the content shared in this podcast is for informational purposes only. I am not a licensed therapist, and the discussions here are not a substitute for professional advice. If you're dealing with a specific issue or need personalized guidance, please consult with a qualified professional. Your well-being is important, and this podcast is simply a platform for sharing insights and experiences. I appreciate you spending this time with me. Until next time.